A mother's son disappears without a trace. Her search for answers comes to a tragic and shocking end.
If you could talk to the person or the people that are responsible, what would you tell them?
Why they didn't let me know? And that my son mattered to everybody that knew him. And he mattered to me, he mattered to his children. Time heals, but it's like this just happened.
For Shelia Brown, the nightmare began long after she thought the days of worrying about her baby boy were over. Tariq Owens was a full-grown man and a parent himself, but even in 36, he still wasn't too old to need his mom, including on the last night she saw him alive.
He was spending the night with me. He wasn't feeling well, and he stayed at my house. He just stayed overnight with me for me to just be comforting to him.
It was a night like hundreds of others they'd shared before, until it wasn't.
I went to sleep, and when I woke up, my door was ajar, and he was gone. That wasn't him.
To this day, Shelia has no idea where he went or why, just the hell that came after.
I immediately ran outside, and when I didn't, out of frantic, I'm panicking, what happened, shoes, belongings are still there.
Officers take a report and tell Shelia they'll clone the area. Eventually, they'll even take DNA samples from Tariq's things and from Shelia herself.
And what were you thinking about when you gave the DNA?
I'm extremely hopeful at this point because I'm hoping that when that information gets in the system, that it could be matched to any possible missing persons.
But for 4 years, not one single lead. For Shelia, one of the hardest parts was trying to explain things to Tariq's children.
And would they ask you?
Grandma, have you found my dad? Have you contacted the police department? Are they still looking? That's what the main thing they would ask. Are they still looking for my dad? And I said, yes, they are.
But then, in October, Shelia received the call every parent dreads.
Very bluntly, they called me and they said, this is the coroner office and we have your son's remains.
Words no mother should ever have to hear, but it gets worse. As Shelia would soon learn, there was one outrageous detail the coroner's office left out.
The next day after the phone call, my family shared with me after reading the coroner report. They said, we have something else to tell you. And I just kept saying I couldn't take no more news, Listen, they've had his body since 2011.
As it turns out, police found Tariq's remains in a washed-out storm drain 8 months after he disappeared. Cause of death undetermined. Unbelievably, he was found just 5 blocks from Shelia's home.
It hurts to know that he was put on a shelf. It hurts to know that I was actively driving all over Los Angeles looking for my son. To know that he was sitting in the county morgue all these years, and I feel I could have been spared some grieving.
How in this age of high-tech forensics can a person simply fall through the cracks? As Crime Watch Daily investigates the surprising gaps in how missing adults are tracked in this country, we find that Shelia's story isn't even the most unique. When Turkish expat Fatima Nure moved to California, it was to make a better life for herself and her only child, Cengiz.
I always worked hard just to keep the roof over our head and that he could go to private school. And, oh, Mom, you worry too much. I'm worried about you. Stop worrying so much. Just be happy.
And for the most part, Fatima didn't worry. Not even when after graduating high school at the age of 17, Cengiz decided to take off with friends to follow the Grateful Dead.
First stop was supposed to be at Greyhound Rock in Santa Cruz. And they were going to hang out there for a while and then take off and go to Monterey and then San Francisco. I gave him a ride to meet his friends. Then I said, make sure get in touch with me. And he goes, of course, Mom, I'll give you a call and I'll let you know where I am. And that was the last time I saw him.
It was April 27, 1995, the very first night of their trip. Cengiz and his friends were hanging out on the beach when he told them he was going for a walk. He never returned. His friends thought maybe he just hitched a ride to the next show, but
they looked for him, they couldn't find him. They go, oh, probably he took off with somebody else. And his friends thought that they'll probably meet him on the next event, next city, and that's what they thought, and continue with their journey.
Over a month later, somebody finally realized Cengiz was actually missing.
It was like in the afternoon, and his friends was on the phone. I go, oh, this is no good. Why am I getting a phone call from his friend, not from him?
Realizing how much time had passed, Fatima quickly files a police report, then starts her own investigation, even allowing herself to think the worst.
I called mortuaries from all the way from San Diego to San Francisco, asked them, do you have anybody matching Cengiz's description? They all said, no, 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 there isn't anything.
Unfortunately, that wasn't exactly true. In fact, just a month after Cengiz went missing, an apparently drowned body washed up on the shore not far from where he vanished. After weeks in the ocean, it was badly decomposed.
At that point, the coroner went about how do we identify the body. In the coroner's report, they also say that they took a section of my client's son's femur for also DNA testing.
There was just one problem.
The coroner in this particular case took the samples for DNA testing, but never sent those samples to the Department of Justice to be analyzed. They just put them on a shelf.
For 19 long years, Fatima traveled up and down the coast, never knowing what really happened.
It's like undescribable pain 24/7. Just you try to move on. I would keep thinking, oh, okay, maybe he had an amnesia. Maybe he joined a cult, or maybe he's in jail. I would have been happy even, then I knew he's alive, even he was in jail.
It wasn't until just last year that she would finally learn the truth.
The police officer in Pacific Grove was reviewing this cold case file and realized that the samples that the coroner had never been delivered for DNA testing. They immediately sent the samples to the Department of Justice, did the testing, and immediately a match was made with my client.
Entire time, they had my son at the Monterey coroner's office, sitting there. Here I am going crazy, looking for him. Nobody should go through this, no one.
Coming up,
Every time I look at his pictures, I cry.
too many mothers' tears inspire one woman to fight to change a dysfunctional system.
I have to give people hope and know that their hope is to bring their loved one home.